Welcome to this session of the Inspiring Women Transforming Science virtual event. My name is Fei Lin, Senior Editor of Gen Biotechnology, the peer-reviewed journal by Marianne Liebert Inc., launched in 2022 covering outstanding original research and perspectives across the biotech field. It's my pleasure to be the moderator of this panel. Joining me today are three outstanding women, Blythe Adamson, Sarah McGough, and Claudia Perlich, who work in one of the hottest areas of science today, artificial intelligence, or AI. In our discussion, we'll cover the role and growth of AI in different industries, in addition to navigating the notable underrepresentation of women in the computational sciences. We'll start by having each speaker give some brief background on themselves and their current role. And so welcome our three panelists. I'll start with whoever's first on my screen. So Blythe, how about you? Want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Faye. I'm Blythe Adamson. I'm the head of health outcomes research and evidence generation at a health tech company in New York called Flatiron Health. And in my role as a scientist there, I am curating and generating evidence from electronic medical records for cancer patients. And we're answering questions like, what drug is the best for what person at what time? And I have the privilege of working with teams of engineers, clinicians, research scientists to transform messy real-world data into meaningful, impactful evidence.
Thank you. Sarah, you are next on my screen here. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much for having me. Sarah McGough. I'm a principal data scientist at a biotech company called Genentech, based in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm an epidemiologist by training, specialized in disease modeling and forecasting, which I now apply in the cancer space. So a big focus in oncology is this concept of precision oncology, or tailoring cancer treatments to patients' very specific disease and molecular profiles. So being able to predict who's at high risk, who will benefit from treatment and why. A lot of similar questions to what Blythe just mentioned. And so really looking at a population, sort of bird's eye view at thousands or millions of patients. And so a lot of this involves advanced analytics and AI to do.
Thank you, Sarah. Claudia, what about you?
So I'm Claudia Perlich. My current role is managing director of a team called Strategic Data Science here at Two Sigma, which is a financial science company. And we are working with a lot of variety of data streams to discover signal that ultimately help our financial investment. But I've always really been bad at keeping my dance card clean, so I do a lot of other things. And so in particular, I'm also teaching at NYU in the MBA program, a course on data science and AI for business intelligence. And I'm involved on a couple of advisory boards, both on the academic side, like the Center for Data Science, but also AI for Good and Data and Society. And I continue to kind of dabble in the research space by helping organize conferences like KDD that keeps kind of me involved with the most recent developments in AI in that space.
Thank you, Claudia. We're thrilled to have this discussion today. And as we've heard, there's really a diversity of applications that AI has infiltrated these days. If anything, it's become a huge buzzword, mainstream, and infiltrating really everything that we can really think about. And so one of the biggest questions that we have these days is, why has AI become now so mainstream these days when many computational tools, or the use of computation in research in different areas of the sector, hasn't necessarily been new, right? We've been using computation for a bit of time. So why so mainstream these days? Anyone want to take a stab at that?
Well, I may have a bit of a snarky comment, but I think there's obvious good reasons, right? I mean, the explosion in the capabilities and performance is one of them. But I think in the past, we had this kind of perspective that AI is the stuff we don't know how to do. And once we figure out how to make a computer do it, it's no longer AI. So if you think of like playing chess and kind of the old gen, but I think what's really different is that today everybody can interact with it because it's language. You can talk to it, you can see it, you can look at these incredible creations on the kind of visual side. Whereas in the past, when AI was successful, it became invisible. I mean, when was the last time you thought about your spam filter? You only think about it when it doesn't work. Like, so these technologies, machine learning, in the past, we had seen them successful, they disappeared from view. And what's really different about this iteration is their capabilities, but also that they are so much in our face and get us excited when they work well. And I think so, to me, that's really the switching point in that new generation, leading to that excitement.
Yeah, I think I would just add to that and say that, I mean, I feel like I always start my papers with some kind of sentence around the like, due to the recent availability of big data in XYZ space, whether that's more molecular profiling of cancer tumors or thanks to the digitalization of disease surveillance data. So, I mean, like, we have more data. We've always had the data. I think it's just now more publicly available, and we have more tools, more computational improvements, infrastructure. But I just wanted to jump on what Claudia was saying, because I recently learned the word AI washing. And I thought that was very interesting. Just sort of the idea that like even like your toothbrush is now, your electric toothbrush can sort of claim sort of AI capabilities. I think it's a lot more in your face. I think it's a beautiful thing that so many different fields can leverage AI. So it's not just about tailoring ads that you see on Google. It's not just for marketing. It's for healthcare. It's for climate research. It's for economics, but also now it's for products. And so I think because so many companies have sort of jumped on this to build some type of AI capability in their product suite, the public as consumers are being exposed to it more, like Claudia said with spam, or like streaming recommendations on Spotify, or obviously now ChatGPT. Like, we always had chatbots, but now they're next level. And I think these mainstream use cases are driving that sort of mainstream familiarity, and people are therefore like hungry for more. And that's driving more sort of consumer applications.
Yeah, I agree with all of those things. And I think many scientists in the world today, I mean, depending on what generation you were trained in, were trained in classical analytical techniques and methods for quantitative data analysis. And so there's so much scientific acceptance of, the math that we use to understand numbers and create meaning. And now we're in a completely different place with capabilities now that we're able to analyze and interpret language. And really, products like ChatGPT and allowing these things to not just be conducted by PhD level scientists who have been trained in all the right methods, but the accessibility of these sophisticated tools in a way that's practically useful to people that don't have a PhD in a scientific field. I think that really is what has educated the entire world all at the same time to create an amount of acceptance and comfort and some level of trust that that it's real. It's not all hype.
Building on those themes of accessibility and advancing technologies, all three of you work in different roles and different areas of AI in your particular fields. Can you give an overview of some of the big developments that you've seen in AI in your particular field?
I could jump in, just coming from kind of the biotech perspective. So, in biotech, our goal is to make transformative medicines, deliver this to society, dramatically improve patient outcomes. And we definitely have a vision to do this also at a significantly lower cost to society. And I think what's exciting about AI is that it can really hit all phases of drug development. So I work in one very specific area of drug development, which I can expand on, but there's this idea of like, it can expedite the preclinical stage, the discovery phase, designing better medicines, but also to the clinical trials phase. So selecting more appropriate patients that we want to treat, or identifying high-risk patients, or being able to predict adverse events. And then in the downstream aspect, delivering treatment strategies in the clinic. And so you can kind of see how there's a lot of opportunity to do drug development just better and more efficiently. And I think that opportunities for AI kind of can hit that entire life cycle. So things I'm excited about, I actually do not work in the early research space, but I think drug discovery is being completely transformed. So the idea that, you originally had like AlphaFold to catalog and predict the structure of millions of proteins, and then tools that are going to go and identify different binding sites to affect disease pathways. So that's like, developing medicine. And I think just in the last couple of years, we've seen this concept of AI-designed molecules that are not just successful in sort of the lab, but they're going into clinical trials. And we've seen a few examples of those. So that's what I'm really excited to watch, because it's one thing to sort of develop a hypothetical molecule that maybe has really good affinity for like an antibody target. But I think what will be really cool to see is in the coming years, how those medicines, like whether they're indeed effective. And there's such a high failure rate in drug development, 90% of clinical trials fail. And so is there a way that we can be more efficient in our drug development, shave time and costs, both in the discovery phase, as well as getting impactful medicines to patients? This, I think, is like a hugely ripe area in drug development. But I actually, as I kind of alluded to, I work more on the precision oncology. Once we have medicines, how are we delivering those to patients side of the business? And I think that's really coming to life. But we have yet to really see, a lot of, I guess, impact in that space yet. And I think that's coming. So we've seen attempts where, can we use IBM Watson to predict the right therapy for a cancer patient? And programs like these have actually failed repeatedly because healthcare data is really complex and it's very difficult to scale very good solutions. And so I think what's coming is more generalizable models that can both be scaled, across hospital systems, for example, but also can be very precise and really tailor a patient's unique profile. So I think that like duality is what's coming and is going to be very exciting to see.
Yeah, so I really loved Sarah's perspective. I've been following the kind of medical application development and find it absolutely fascinating. On the financial side, I wouldn't quite advise people yet to ask ChatGPT to give them stock tips. So I think AI really has incredible value more on the augmentative side. So it helps me in data pre-processing. A lot of data we deal with is textual, and I can't read through all of this, right? So we're using these technologies to transform data into a form that lets me do my job a lot easier to then find signal that's relevant in finance. But the other component I wanted to touch on is I feel like it lifts a little bit of the burden of being kind of in the technical day-to-day. So it makes it easier for people who is not natively code all day long to use tooling like ChatGPT to have code being generated to achieve things. And it really, to me, it opens doors to people who may not traditionally have been in these techie fields and doing computational finance now can reach out and have their ideas and bring them and actually transform them to reality with the help of AI. So there is like an increase in diversity of thought that becomes enabled by AI taking on a bit of that technical role of the coding. I'm really interested in where this is going. So I see the initial effects of it. So that's kind of one side impact that I'd never seen coming from AI to enable people from very diverse backgrounds to jump into technical work.
Yeah, and I'll pile on an emphasis to one thing I heard you say, which were all the pages of documents that you need to be able to read and understand. And a lot of my research long ago involved so much manual labor of reading through documents. And one of the things that drew me to the company that I'm at right now, Flatiron Health, was its access to all the underlying medical records documents, clinical notes, 50-page genomic reports, all these things that are trapped in PDF, scans of faxes, all these things. And I had access to more than 1 trillion pages of documents. And Sarah also mentioned this ability to scale. And so before, we were often so limited by what human capacity, human labor could do to move research forward. Now the scale that we can do it, before we could use natural language processing, build deep learning models, but now with large language models, the amount that we've accelerated with AI and building this tooling really means that what might have taken 6 months to do before now can happen in an hour. And it's just really exciting and rewarding to see how quickly science can move now.
Thank you all. And AI certainly has transformed all industries in terms of scale. And Claudia, I want to pick on a word you used, which was diversity, and attached to that concept of accessibility. And that's a great transition point to this other aspect of the session that we're so interested in talking about, which is the fact that AI, computational sciences, is a very male-dominated field. And one of our missions at the Rosalind Franklin Society is to talk about that and give voice to non-males in this field and how we can really make a change in terms of that diversity in the field. So for all of our panelists, would you all like to speak on some of your experiences in terms of being a non-male in this field, and some of the pros and some of the challenges as well?
Well, I'll jump in and start and say, it is such a joy to work at a tech company that's led by women. Flatiron has a CEO that's a woman. Our chief technology officer is a woman. 58% of our executives are women. I think that representation is incredibly important. And the best way to do high quality science and to create high quality products is to have diverse teams building those products. Especially, can you imagine just doing breast cancer research led by a bunch of male engineers? There's so many ways that it could go badly. And so I feel really lucky to work at a company that places such a high priority on taking more time during recruiting and interviewing candidates to be able to identify, the most excellent people and have them represent society and the people who we're building products for and trying to help.
I could maybe pile on with a couple more positives, but we can also discuss some of the thorny things as well. But I also kind of wanted to comment something very similar to what Blythe was saying, which is that I do also feel quite fortunate to work in a very inclusive environment, which is very gender balanced, actually, maybe relative to other fields in STEM. And maybe that's also related to sort of healthcare and public health in general, which I believe is just very altruistic. But I wanted to comment on something very interesting, which is that, at Genentech, actually inclusive hiring and unconscious bias training are both required for all employees, like 10 to 15,000 people. And we actually ran our job ad through a gender analyzer, which is going to look for words that are more male coded or more female coded. So I have been involved in other big tech companies where it's like, we need a rock star, dominate this task, expert. And studies do show that women sort of balk at terms like that. And so we did this exercise and actually found that our job ad codes very heavily more female coded. So using words like cooperation and interdisciplinary. So I think it can really start at an early phase in terms of hiring, and also just what are you signaling to people to attract diverse talent in your workforce? And sort of what kind of personalities do you want at the table? And I think diversity is key for that, to really sort of challenge everyone's unconscious bias, but also just to build better products. And so, yeah, I just wanted to add that, just because I think it's a fun anecdote, but I certainly don't feel that everywhere I go. And so, you know, I was at ECML in September, which is the European Conference for Machine Learning, and that I certainly felt. Claudia, were you there?
Yes, I was an organizer.
Oh, amazing! Okay, so I was keynoting at one of the workshops on pharma and machine learning, and yeah, that's where I walked around and I felt okay. And I actually did read a little bit about ECML's efforts to sort of get more females involved in the organizing committee. Maybe you can speak to that actually, but I did feel, you know, much more of a minority there. And I think it's important to see people who are responsible being women, because that type of responsibility will signal that other women feel included. And I definitely, yeah, I definitely feel that wherever I go.
So I love that you brought this up, and maybe I can jump in right there on that example. So it's really interesting to me in the academic world, because there you see kind of broadly a perpetuation of less of a balance than the experiences that the two of you seem to be having. And on one hand, I have grown to be quite comfortable in these male environments. So I've been to ECML and these events a couple of times. And it's kind of what I wanted to point is like a double-edged sword. One is there's this nagging feeling that they have asked me to be the general chair of this thing because I happen to be female. Now, if that's the only qualification that got me the position, then I'm very inclined to decline. But on the other hand, I do feel, to your point, that that's important that we take this stage, and almost no matter how we got there. But the other thing, my experience has been, and maybe you can kind of confirm that, the beauty of being one of the 10% women in that room is they will remember you. Next year around, they will know exactly who you are because they remember you giving that keynote there. I think there is something that was quite beneficial to my career, is that I did take the stage as one of the very few women in my field. And I think it has truly helped me in building out that kind of now role model, if you want, that I'm in fact grateful for.
Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, even though I can work in a great environment bubble, there's still going out into the world and facing discrimination and profiling about what people expect scientific experts to look like. So I, previously was the lead data scientist at the White House. And I remember a time when, I had to go to someone at CDC and, review and critique some of their models. And this engineer looks me up and down and says, "This isn't in Excel. This model's not in Excel. You're not going to be able to, understand it." And I was like, well, I heard it's coded in C++. And from my review of all of your equations, I bet it's taking you about 20 hours to run on your laptop. And I remember I went to the Pentagon to train all the top Army mathematicians. And I showed up and, they said, "Are you Dr. Adamson's assistant?" And I was like, "No, I am Dr. Adamson. I don't look like what you're expecting." And so I think even if you find a great group of people to work with, there's still the amount that we have to go out and engage in the world. And that's why I love, Claudia, what you were saying about how I've had the same experience of being a conference organizer. We have to be leaders in making sure that things like panels of only men, manels, are not happening. They shouldn't be happening anymore.
I think the visibility is key. I just wanted to confirm, Claudia, because you said sort of to confirm this or not. I do think exactly like what Blythe was saying as well, just sort of, it is a bit of a double-edged sword, but it's something that we sort of have a responsibility to model for others. And hopefully in the future, it's no longer a surprise. Like in the future, the best case scenario is that we don't stand out because we're the 10%. Although I do feel that certainly, And I think it is an advantage that women should be seizing with open arms right now, because I do think it helps accelerate growth and visibility. But the ideal world in the future is that it's not so surprising to be that only female in the room. But yeah, very inspiring to hear from you both on that.
Thank you all for sharing those experiences. And you all touched upon another important topic for our audience, and that's career development and mentorship, community. And so in terms of your personal paths, how did you all get into AI, navigate those challenges? Did you have powerful mentors or support networks? What was that journey like for all of you?
I think I stumbled into AI back in '95, which is very early, admittedly, and that was at a time where it didn't work well. So it was like prior the previous AI winter. But I was studying computer science. I was interested, but to me, I just got super excited about dealing with data. I was a bit of an introvert, believe it or not, and the idea that you could learn about people without having to talk to them was really appealing. So I took my first machine learning course, and to me, the breadth of application from, we have heard breast cancer, we have heard about development of drugs, we have talked about, or we have mentioned climate modeling, and all these business applications. I always felt the breadth of this to be truly exciting. And so I felt that I can get really into a variety of topics with the skills that I have. And so my advice, and maybe the path I've taken, is I have picked opportunities based on the people I would be working with and for. So my advice, for instance, to PhD students is you pick an advisor and then you figure out what to do. But find somebody who really cares about mentoring you. And I have walked into some of these more male-dominated environments, and it just felt awkward. And I felt like all of a sudden I had to prove things that I shouldn't have to be proving. And I walked away and said, you know what? I can find something else to do with the skill set that I have. So I've been always very picky about who I work for and needing to like that and it being the right atmosphere for me. And so I think that's ultimately enabled me to build up a nice environment of mentors, but it wasn't picking the mentors first. It's more like I went into places that seemed to have a good atmosphere, showed what I was capable of doing, and by doing so gathered supporters that then helped me build my career somewhat naturally, rather than focusing too much exclusively, I need to get all of these mentors. I think it's do what you're passionate about, do it well, pick a good environment, and the mentor network will hopefully fall into place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could follow that with maybe a less of a linear journey. And I think what's nice about today is that AI is so ubiquitous that I think you can really enter it from so many different fields. And so in my case, I am an epidemiologist by training. So as an epidemiologist, I'm thinking about population level health and patterns and trends. And so I trained in many different sort of statistical and then later machine learning techniques to be able to forecast disease at the population level. Maybe a lot of what you were doing at the White House, Blythe. So like how many cases of flu do we expect next week? Or like during COVID, same situation. Or a lot of my work with mosquito-borne diseases, will there be an epidemic year for dengue fever in this area of Brazil? So you're training on really large, very longitudinal data sets, very messy, thinking very carefully about how to sort of appropriately combine and model the effects that you're trying to study. And so I think AI sort of became a natural evolution from that, because a lot of the questions at hand are prediction. Can I fill in some unknown? Can I do that with my extraordinarily thorny data set? And can I do that in a way that sort of autonomously like picks up something complex about the data that maybe I can't see with my naked eye? And so I think that was sort of my evolution towards AI. It wasn't so deliberate, but it sort of became a natural sort of endpoint from just what I was working on. And yeah, I mean, just I would echo everything that Claudia said about mentors. I think I've had wonderful male and female mentors, and I think it's just about who gives you a seat at the table, who sort of respects you for your ideas, and there's sort of no other undercurrent that's going on there, and like you just sort of feel valued as a scientist. You follow the science, and I think the good mentors will sort of show you the way. And so I think absolutely my sort of career development has definitely been on the shoulders of wonderful mentors who will identify, who really value like my ideas and my passion, sort of see my curiosity and will say, there's this really great project, and it's using some of the methods that you used in your dissertation, and it's with that professor that you really admire, and we want to put you as the lead on that. And it's like, those are things that early in my career, I couldn't really speak for myself to sort of be like, I should have that. But it really, I think, I can attribute a lot of my success to really wonderful mentors.
Great. I agree with all of those things. And I'll add on that one of the ways that I think about building my skill set through experiences and continuing to find new trainings and level up my skills is not trying to be prepared for the problems today, but trying to forecast what do I think are going to be important problems that I want to be solving in 5 years or 10 years, and who are the scientists that are going to be needed to solve those problems? What are the skill sets that are going to be needed in the future? And those are the things that I want to be building now. And so I don't think there's ever a perfect job for anyone. But I think that sometimes we can take on roles for a season with intention and mission and focus to be able to learn something really important. But then over the arc of our career, it's, for example, why I've wanted to and gained experiences working in academics, in industry, in nonprofit, in government, in tech. Those were important to me because I wanted to develop empathy for all of these different perspectives. I also have a framework that I think of knowing what makes me happy in my career and in a role. And for me, I think it's different for every person. For me, if there's 3 things that make me happy, and I know that I will be happy in a role if I can get at least 2 out of 3 of those things. The first is mission. I'm passionate about the mission. The second is incredible data, like huge, messy data I've never touched before. And then the third is the methods that I love and I love using. So it's very hard, I think, to ever find a job that hits every single thing on your wish list. I happen to be in a sweet spot at the moment. But I think it's just for every person figuring out, what you value and what makes you happy and what are you building towards, so that you can take off the pressure of feeling like you have to get everything perfectly right now.
We're just about to wrap up for this session, but the last question I want to ask you all is, what advice would you have for other women who are interested in entering this field?
Well, find amazing mentors. Reach out. Also build a network. Reach out. I have both received many cold inbounds and sent many cold inbounds on LinkedIn to sort of get to know what other people are doing in this space. I think other advice includes, Blythe said something that reminded me, I think you were talking about like kind of anticipate the trends. And I think to be involved in AI now is very different than to be involved in AI in 5 years. So if you actually want to plan to get involved, it's a constantly evolving space, new tech, new methods, new data all the time. And so I think trying to anticipate what are going to be the hottest topics in AI, for me, that's going to be like explainable AI, transparency, sort of building public trust in AI, building the right infrastructures to scale AI responsibly. So thinking about that now, because that's not something I was thinking about 5 years ago because it wasn't really at that stage. So just like trying to look to the future and at the horizon of what's to come.
Well, I guess my off the bat answer would be, it's totally okay if you're not a math whiz. There's a role for many, many different backgrounds and interests to get into this. I think it's important to play to your passion and your strength. You will find a career if you know what you are good at and what you can contribute. It's not about learning all the stuff that everybody else right now is told to be learning, but really stick to what you are excited about, and also bring, at least to me, a good amount of your critical thinking to the table. So the way I'm looking at folks early on, I'm trying to get them to see both the opportunities and the hype and why this is exciting, but also the most successful people that I've engaged here were those who had a bit of a critical voice in the back of their head, always asking them, is this really right? Am I not fooling myself in this? And I think it's okay to have both of these voices in your head. They will give you strength and success moving forward. So don't let the kind of critical voice talk you down. I think you can develop it into almost like somebody watching over you, because it is a challenging new world where you want to tread carefully, and seeing both the potential and the also more concerning side of it will play to your strengths, and don't abandon one for the other.
I'll add that imposter syndrome is real. It's something that everyone has to deal with. And most people are not as smart as you think they are. So just be intentional about trusting your gut and your own intuition. Seek input and mentorship, but also, if your gut is telling you to do something or pursue something, then just get over yourself and try. So building confidence in yourself is important.
Thank you, Blythe, Sarah, and Claudia, for sharing your insights. Thank you all for tuning into this session of Inspiring Women Transforming Science. We hope you enjoyed this conversation, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having us.
After 2 days of impressive, wide-ranging presentations, I know you're energized. I hope we have helped you launch a great year for 2024 and for amazing contributions in science. I'd like to underscore 3 pieces of guidance which ran through many of the presentations in the past 2 days. 1, be prepared, do your homework. 2, be bold. 3, be opportunistic and take risks. As a reminder, the presentations will be available on the RFS website, and we hope you will find ones that you may have missed, and that you will also share them with your colleagues during the days and weeks to come. And of course, we are grateful to our partners for this event, CURE, Jen, Marianne Liebert Incorporated. And of course, we will continue to support and work with our new corporate leaders, such as Pfizer and Rosalind Inc., as we grow our new Council of Corporate Leadership. In the meantime, please continue to follow us on social media and subscribe to our biweekly newsletter, RFS Briefings, and let us know what you are up to this year so that we may share amazing accomplishments among scientists worldwide. Thanks, and stay in touch.